Hello, hello, hello. I haven't made a video in a while. Here we are together, the baby dog and I, on the camp cot that is heated. Yes, very good. Oh yeah, that's very, very nice. Keep your dogs covered under a sleeping bag, okay? Puffer sleeping bag, very important. Short-haired dogs, they have to always be covered. Very, very important information. So this is now the first day that after about 3 months or so that I'm 100% back on the holistic track. I have substituted now all the pharma stuff that I had been taking out of panic. I substituted back with whole plant substances, so which is absolutely amazing. It started out, as I already talked about in my other videos. One video was, by the way, deleted by YouTube. They would not post that video because in that video I said that I said something about the vaccines, but they let me post that video on Rumble. So I am on Rumble with the same name. You can watch the video. That's I forgot the title now, but that's an update video on my health condition, and in that video I talked about what the vaccines do. And if I say that now, this video is gonna get deleted again. So I think it is, and if it does, I will put it on Rumble, of course. And I just hope that Rumble stays freedom of speech. That's all I can say. And I hope that maybe Elon Musk can buy Rumble at some point, or YouTube. I don't think Google will let Elon Musk buy YouTube because YouTube is owned by Google, and that is one of the largest mega conglomerations of the tech industry. It's like a mega conglomeration corporation or something. I mean, like mega world dominating, owned by, dictated to by all kinds of stringholders, and particularly from the pharma industry. And that's why they will not post a video. And this is what I was talking about the vaccines. It was way into the video, like 40 minutes into the video, so a regular person has not looked that up. A regular person, they hire regular people also to do that dirty work for them as well. But this was definitely done by an AI, by a search, like catchword search AI, and because that happened in seconds, as I uploaded the video, just a few minutes later it said, we cannot post this video, okay, we have to delete it. And this is an absolute breach of freedom of speech. This is a breach of our democracy. It is a breach of our constitution, because this platform, YouTube, and only because if it was owned by one person and only 2 people were on it, right, then that would be a totally different story. Then yeah, they have the right to censor one person, one of the 2 people that go on their website or whatever. That's their business, their privately owned thing, and all of that. But it's not. It is a world forum, okay? The entire world is on YouTube, okay? And that's why this affects, so that's why it has such an enormous effect on our freedom of speech, obviously, okay? When there are literally billions of people on this website, then a website like this has the responsibility, I have to keep my spinal cord straight, then the website has the responsibility of keeping this fair and clean and straightforward and freedom of speech and democratic, okay? Because that's the ethical way to deal with a wider public, okay? That's the only way to deal with the wider public, to keep it democratic. And there's only one website now that is democratic, and that's Elon Musk's X website, okay? So for the people that don't know X, I don't know if there are any that don't know X, but that used to be called Twitter, not anymore, okay? So because it is now democratic, and there is no more Project Bluebird involved from the government with mind control, mentale Kontrolle, ultra, no longer allowed on that, and no longer censorship, no longer breaking any of these ethical laws. Okay, so this is based on ethics. He allows ethics, he allows democracy, he allows freedom of speech, he allows everyone to have their views, opinions, beliefs, and so on. And that's what the foundation of the United States originally was built upon. And guess what? Dick Cheney and George W. Bush, and then after them, Barack Obama, have breached, and it's amazing what they dare to do. They have changed some parts of our U.S. Constitution, which should never be changed, because those are fundamental human rights, these things that the founding father of the United States have written. Okay, those are fundamental civil rights, and Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama have breached our U.S. Constitution by changing some parts in the U.S. Constitution, because the original Constitution said they don't allow torture from the side of the United States under any circumstance, military or any circumstance, martial law, no circumstance allows torture. Barack Obama changed that and put a clause in there and allowed waterboarding again. And that's not the only thing he has done. He has also changed the law where an animal rights activist will have no right to a lawyer. That's another fundamental law, that everyone should have the right to a lawyer, to a defense lawyer, right? An animal rights activist who protests in front of a fur store is not allowed to get a lawyer, is not allowed to get a trial even, and is not even allowed to talk to their family members. So, and most people don't know this. The vast majority of people do not know this. That's why I talk about this, because I find out because of my activism. I find out about these things. For more than 20 years, I have been actively watching and observing what's happening in the United States. Okay, with all of these breaches that very criminal people have done to this country and to this constitution, okay, that we have. So now an animal rights activist is not given any of these regular civil rights at all. A murderer or a child rapist is given all of that: a defense lawyer, trial, a totally biased jury in favor of the criminal, judges in favor of the criminal, and so on and on and on. And we all know this, okay? So it's obviously right in our faces. So Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama have done this to this country, okay? And many other things, many other corporate agenda serving things that they have woven into our Constitution and into our entire judicial system. Okay, it's very, very sad, all of this. And they have hired very criminal people to be in top political offices and so on. On and on and on and on. It's just a horror. It's an absolute horror. And the medical industry, that seems to be the absolute, the medical and pharma industries, which is one unit. I heard they have taken over the universities somewhere in the 50s. I think it was under Richard Nixon, when he was a highly corrupt politician. And that's how they have completely infiltrated the universities. And I don't think only in the United States, but also in Europe, because the subject field should be called, the subject field should be at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, any of these prestigious university, any university. It should be called healing or healing modalities. That's how it should be called. Okay, it's very straightforward. Healing modalities. Okay. How to heal a living being, and it shouldn't even be sorted out between animal and human. Okay, we're all on the same page with this. My baby dog and I, we have the same needs. Okay, there are slight differences in the digestion tract between the different species and so on. But, as people go into different fields like gynecology or wherever they go into oncology or neurology or whatever, so they can also go into veterinary medicine. There again, the wrong word, the wrong terminology. Okay, they can go into healing animals. Okay, so there'll be a separate section of a specification field. Okay, a field of expertise that people then later on get into throughout the course of their medical studies, which is the wrong term, right? Of their healing a living being studies. Okay, so that's how it should be called, and not medical, pharmaceutical, medical studies. Okay, I'm getting a little overheated. I have to take this hat off. My hair's messed up, but whatever. I have to keep my spinal cord straight. I cannot even sit on a chair or on a recliner chair or on that chair over there or on this bed or in the van. I cannot sit in the regular sitting position. So I cannot do it. So it's so painful, all of this. So I want to focus my mind. Hopefully I focus my mind, because my mind is quite all over the place and I have racing thoughts and I'm thinking about all of this. I have a lot of anger, but I have to always come back to what Eckhart Tolle said. He said, if you are in a traffic situation, in a traffic jam, and there's a lot of people around you honking their horns and all of this, then you need to remind yourself that this is a situation not different to, let's say, if a very strong wind will push your car into a ditch. So then you can also be angry, and you can. I'm making video right now, making video, just letting you know. So and the reason why he brings this up, this comparison, which is obviously is, it's a comparison that only serves a thought experiment. Okay, and that thought experiment, a meditation type of thought experiment. Obviously, the wind is very different than the other people in cars that are violent and so on. The wind is not violent. But we need to bring ourselves back to this mental state of samadhi, which is, look at it from the sky perspective. Look at it from the love perspective. Look at it from a perspective of not being mentally invested or involved in this moment. And we don't, and the reason why he brings up the wind is because when we are thinking about the wind, we are not invested or mentally involved with the wind. I mean, that can also later down the road, we can also blame people for a strong wind. But that's beside the point right now. What he's trying to say is, take just a natural phenomenon that cannot be attributed to a person that we want to blame, right? So the wind itself cannot be blamed. The wind is just there. It's a samadhi situation. I am looking at it from the sky perspective, literally. The wind. We have a fairy tale in which the children always say, the children captured by a predator in a forest, and the children say to that predator, that was just the wind that you heard talking. The Wind, der Wind, das himmlische Kind. The wind, the heavenly child. And so it's a samadhi situation, okay? We can't blame anything on anyone. It's the wind that pushed the car, and now he wants to do this as a form of Tonglen meditation, where we extrapolate or we translate this samadhi situation of the wind, and we look at the people shouting in their cars or doing terrible things or even doing road rage or whatever, and we look at them in the same way as we look at the wind, And that's quite a stretch. I am not blaming anyone if they have a difficult time with that, but that's what samadhi meditation is all about. I look at a very inflammatory situation, inflammatory for the ego, for our mind, for our personal involvement in a situation. We might even be affected by this. Someone may have pushed a road rager has pushed our car into a ditch or is pointing the gun at us. It's a very difficult situation, no doubt about it. Very different to the wind. But because the wind is not putting the gun on your head, the wind isn't threatening you like this, okay, as a road rager might do. But in meditation, we look at these different things from the same sky perspective, okay? We view this criminal, if we are in complete mental stillness, as the Buddhists talk about, as Eckhart talks about, as Sadhguru talks about, as Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about, and many other people talk about. Okay, mental stillness. That doesn't mean you go into a flat line. Okay, don't confuse that with Yuji Krishnamurti was saying. We can never have mental stillness. he was he was projecting from his own mental unstillness, you know. So Yuji Krishnamurti, it's a different Krishnamurti, who went to the same school, the Theosophical Society in South India, and he knew Jiddu Krishnamurti. They knew each other for many decades. And Yuji was really like a student of Jiddu Krishnamurti. Yuji was like 20 years younger than Jiddu Krishnamurti, and always been there, always been listening to his lectures and so on. And Yuji Krishnamurti was jealous that he wanted to become a world leader too. He wanted to become a guru, but where does that come from? It comes from ego, of course. It doesn't come from another place, right? So we have to be very careful when we observe ourselves. Very, very careful that we don't fall into the trap of our own egos, you know, which happens so many times. So with Jiddu Krishnamurti, he was always talking about this, you know, this looking at things from the mental perspective of samadhi. He avoided the Sanskrit words because he knew how people run off with those words. Samadhi is a state of looking at things from the sky perspective, looking at things like this example that Eckhart mentioned with the wind. So I translate this same view on the situation. The wind blew the car into the ditch, or the wind blew me over, or whatever, or the wind picked up Robert with the umbrella and carried him across the land. That's a fairy tale in Germany. So, and Robert, he cannot get mad at the wind for that. So it just is, right? So his mind never goes into this rage, because there's no way he can rage against the wind, right? It just is. But now let's take this to another level and translate this type of view of looking at the wind or natural occurrences or phenomena, and translate this over to a human or a humanoid, right? Someone that you might expect more different behavior from, you know. You have some how do I explain this? You have some preformed ideas about another human or humanoid or draconian or ET, right? If they have this level of, at least that level of cognition that most people have, or the average person from the whole, let's take the average point from the entire coordinate system of different people in a coordinate system, right? Take the so-called mean, the total average person, average in IQ, average in compassion, average in reaction, and so on. You have someone in the middle. You always have some extremes on the fringes, or some people that are moving towards the fringes. But let's take the absolute average dot on this coordinate system of the different minds of humans from the 8 billion humans on this planet. And then you probably have someone like, if you take all the nations and all people together, you probably have someone like how can I take that is famous, that could fit this so-called mean, the average statistical mean, which is the average. So what is the average person? I'm not going to even mention any name. I'll get in trouble again if I do that. So, but because average is also an insult nowadays. So everything is seen as an insult. People are that volatile. They're like in the opposite direction of that samadhi meditation. Okay, that's why the samadhi meditation is so vitally important, that we bring this to the world, that people get a new perspective on things, and they say, okay, I can translate this view that I have on natural phenomena like wind or weather or rain. Should I be mad at the cloud for raining down on my clothes? No, obviously not, right? It just is, and there's no inflammation of mind and ego. So, but I can translate this same mental state that I have. I look at the cloud from the sky perspective, literally, okay? The clouds are in the sky. The wind comes from the sky, okay? Natural phenomena, okay? The tree, a tree limb might fall on someone. I know a woman, an environmentalist, she was struck by a tree limb one time, and that caused her a lot of injuries. So that would be a really good example to use, Would she be mad at that tree limb? Of course not, because the tree limb doesn't know that it struck that woman, okay, on the head and all of that. She had to go to the hospital. So the tree limb doesn't know. So there's no one to blame here, right? It's a samadhi situation. It's a situation of, okay, total equanimity, the neutrality of mind, and there's no blame involved at all. I love the tree, she loves the tree, she works for the trees, okay, she's helping the trees. Should she now say, oh, I worked for decades to save the trees, now I was struck by a tree limb, should I be mad at the trees now and like generalize it? And you can't even generalize it on that very one tree limb, right? You can't do that. But that's what people do with people. That's what people do with humans. Yes. And so it's a samadhi situation. I love the tree. The tree doesn't know better. The wind broke the branch off. The branch fell on her head. She ended up in the hospital. There's nobody to blame in this, okay? And she never blamed anyone. She may feel sorry for herself in that moment, but she's not going to be mad at anyone. So Eckhart says we can translate this particular point of view and the samadhi sky perspective also onto our view of other people. We can do it. It takes a lot of meditation to do it. And it also takes a lot of what Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about, really seeing the other person. Really seeing, okay? Not assuming, not being prejudiced, not being racist, not being sexist, not being whatever you feel victimized by that group or this person or whatever, and then generalizations are happening. No, you bring your mental state to a stillness. You see the other person, that road rager, for example. Okay, we had a road rager once, okay, out there in Oregon, and turned out that was a spoiled child of a politician who didn't have his mental faculties together. He ended up in prison many times, and he was reported on by the local news, and we immediately recognized him. That was him that has completely gone berserk on us, on Paul and me. We had to use our phone cameras and hold him up like this for him to see that we were filming him. And he was about to come over and hit us or something. And he changed his mind because we had the cameras. We had 2 cameras from 2 different perspectives even. That was just too much for him. He knew better. The neuronal connections of consequences overpowered his anger and rage. And he walked away. Thank goodness. My goodness. I was so scared, because that guy was completely berserk, and I've seen another guy who even looked like him in Reno once in a hotel. Oh my gosh, that was scary. So when they're like on drugs or bath salts or something, or some really heavy duty speed type of drug or something, it just magnifies their ego and their projections and their on and their prejudices and all of this. It magnifies it by hundreds of times when people take drugs. It makes everything so much worse. Okay. So any of these street drugs, they just make everything so much. All the suffering and all this, the mental agony and the victimhood emotions magnifies it by thousands of times. So that's why I'm speaking against it so strongly. I'm also speaking against hallucinogenic drugs because they completely they ruin people's amygdala in the brain. The entire compassion center can get destroyed by hallucinogenic drugs. And there's a lot of people, a lot of old hippies that would kill me for saying this. They would get so mad. You know, people that come from peace, love, brother, everyone. Those people would kill me. They would come after me. They sure would. So why? Because they're not really about peace and love. This is just some kind of it's just another identification. You know, underneath is the same rage and the same victim mentality as any of the other groups and religions and whatever peer group associations people come from. And identifications with whatever people come from. That's why Judy Krishnamurti always said it is so incredibly dangerous for people to identify themselves, their own person, with any kind of peer group, with any kind of thought group or thought school or religion or worldview. Okay, so don't identify yourself with this. Jehovah's Witnesses, they will identify themselves with their particular religion. So, and then there's no way they cannot think at all, not even for a second, outside of this religion, right? And they can't even make friends with someone outside of that religion. So, I met a lot of really awesome people from the Jehovah's Witness. But they cannot stick with me. They can't stay with me. So because they get scared that they will be punished. They go into bardo, like into a ghost state. That's their form of hell that they have been threatened with. Okay? It's all ridiculous. That doesn't cause you bardo to be friends with someone who thinks differently. No. Oh my gosh. Okay. Bardo is caused by the ego. That is what Judy Krishnamurti is talking about. That's what he's trying to free people from, from that ego clinging, from the identification with a particular group, okay, or with a particular image that they want to project out into the world. They want a particular mask that they show themselves in, that they want to be seen as from other people. Toughness or whatever it is, Some people identify themselves with being psychopaths, It's like some kind of pride thing. I mean, that takes it to another level. It's another identification. Very dangerous, particularly when it comes to those kind of forms. If I identify myself with a daisy picking community, right? I'm one of the women that go out in the summertime and pick daisies and smell on them. Okay, so that's our association group, right? So now I am a daisy picker. So that's my religion. Then it's obviously not as dangerous to associate, to identify with that than it is with the identification with being a psychopath or being a Muslim or being belonging to some kind of military. Okay, obviously. So there are many different, varying degrees of danger that comes with identification. But identification in general, if there is a group out there of daisy picking women, then I can say I agree with them on picking daisies in the summertime and eating some of them and smelling on them. That's a good thing to do. It's very healing, very, very healthy. But I am not part of that religion. I hope that makes sense. We have to sort these things out, okay, from one another. So, but I want to come back to the censorship situation. The censorship situation is a situation where string holders, that they may not even be identified with any group. I don't know, could be identified with Zionists or whatever, could be. Most of those are not there. Most of those are atheists, actually. Most of those, the people on the top of the pyramid, maybe they are into the occult, but occult is not religion. Okay? We gotta sort this out. Okay, they may be very skilled with occult practices. Okay, some religions practice occult practices, but occult practices themselves, just like yoga and meditation, are not by themselves religious. Okay, so we have to really understand this and not say, oh, you're practicing meditation, you must be religious. No, of course not. And then people they confuse that with atheism and say, oh, you don't like religion, you must be an atheist. No, that's also wrong. No, of course not. Someone who practices occult practices cannot be an atheist, obviously. But a lot of people in the top pyramid maybe are atheists, or they may be, they're not associated with any guru. That is one thing that they're too smart for. But they suffer from pathological greed. Okay, they don't even take offense. Okay, so when you hear some news article that says this group or this politician or this particular, they took offense and now they have a personal vendetta or something like this, that's another facade. That's also facade. They want people to misunderstand and think about them. Okay, that it's just it's just some kind of, an act of passion or an act of belief or an act of vendetta or whatever. No. It's all of that's bad, but that's not even what they are. Those people, they don't even have, and they're not taking offense to anyone that is criticizing them or saying anything against them, not even about their looks. Or I bet Bill Gates doesn't even care if people talk bad about his looks, which I don't, because I don't talk about people's looks. Okay, that's not my business how people are looking, how their facade is, their appearance is in public or whatever. Bill Gates could be dressed in any way he wants to. I don't talk about it. Okay, so what I talk about is when people have pathological greed. Okay? That's what I criticize. And I have the right to criticize this, because pathological greed causes the most damage in the world. But it's a two-way tango here. If we are not identified, we the regular public, if we are not identified with any kind of religion or any kind of association, then these string holders have no string holding effect on us. I hope that makes a lot of sense now. So That's why this is so incredibly important. And Sri Krishnamurti talks about it all the time. He talked with David Bohm for like over 60 years. All the time. Like every single day they talked about this. Every single day. There are many, many videos that are video recordings and audio recordings of these conversations that are out there in public domain. People can listen to it. I highly recommend that people are listening to it. You don't have to understand everything right up front, and if you don't beat yourself up. Just keep listening to it. At some point, you're going to get into it, and it will start to make sense, okay, what they're talking about, for sure. Jiddu Krishnamurti says identification with a group is extremely dangerous for society. And the reason why it's so extremely dangerous is because the people that have a plan for you, the ones with the corporate agenda people, the ones with the pathological greed, okay? They have a plan for you. If you have no plan, if you're clueless, if you're identified with a group, these stringholders will have a plan for you. They will recruit you. They will make a slave out of you if you are identified with any kind of group out there, with any kind of religion, with any kind of demographic, with any kind of whatever, men walking their own way, or with Black Lives Matter, or with women that are victims from, and they really have a reason to be mad. The women that have been battered, okay, or have been human trafficked. No, they really have a reason to be mad. But it doesn't help us to stay stuck in that anger, and that's why I'm sorting all of this out here, because it doesn't do us any good. There we have to look at it again from the samadhi point of view, from the sky perspective. If we really look at the other person, which is very difficult, particularly with those that have pathological greed and with those that identify themselves as being psychopaths. It's very difficult for us to look at them like the wind. Very difficult. But this takes time and practice, and we can get there. And I'm practicing it. I'm not always there. I get very angry, but I don't act it out. So I used to write angry letters. That was a bad habit. And my brother used that for himself to the fullest. My brother exploited me being angry, me feeling victimized. Exploited that to his complete fullest advantage. He used my anger to tell every family member that I'm a bad person, which just because someone is angry doesn't mean they're a bad person. But that's how society tends to think, right? And my brother uses that again for his personal advantage. He uses their brainwashing way of thinking, and he uses my anger, and he uses my angry letters, and he uses all of that for his own advantage, so that he can get the inheritance. That's the end goal, okay? And he's been doing this for decades, and I didn't even know it, I had couple of times I had some intuition on it, and I had bad dreams about it, and I suddenly had visions of this in my head. And guess what I did? I ended up brushing that off and declaring that my mental illness. That's how I was brainwashed to not even believe into my own intuition. That's how far this goes. A lot of people end up that way. It's very sad. That can cost lives when people ignore their own intuition. So, but then as time went by, I became more and more aware. I listened to my voice more and more, but my family members didn't, and they just declared me more and more and more insane as time went by, as I became more and more and more clear-minded. That's how it goes. Because when I see the things that are going on with other people, and that what I see and then say goes full force against people's identifications, against people's beliefs they have in a specific family member, against a specific patriotic, specific, Helena Petrovna calls it phallic view, okay, like men dominating world, okay, men glorification, sexist type of views, okay, and I've seen it in my family. I've seen it all the time. But then I always wanted to forgive them, and I wanted to say, oh, they're old school, they don't know better. No, if we want to make things better, we cannot forgive people like this. I'm not saying go to war with them or anything. No, but don't let people get off the hook with that. Don't say, okay, I'm the girl, I'm going to help my mother and my aunt clear the table and bring the dessert, right? And my brother, who's 5 years younger than I am, can stay seated next to my uncle and dad, and they can eat their whatever, drink their wine and have a good conversation and lean back while the girls are busy with the dishes, sweating, or are we wearing our good clothes, but hey, it's all drenched in sweat because we're working hard, while the men are sitting on the table. Okay. So in Islam, this is taken to another level of 1,000 stories worse, right? This situation. So much worse. And then my grandfather used these other cultures one day, because he could see that I was viewing this with a critical eye. And he came up to me and says, just without me even previously talking to him about it, but he could see from other days that we spent time together, and that bothered him, that I was criticizing their male dominating worldviews. Okay. So he comes up to me and says to me like this, categorical forefinger, says to me, look at other cultures, you feminists. So he didn't call me feminist, but that's what he was thinking, right? Look at other cultures. They even kill baby girls and only save the boys. See, they are much worse, so don't even talk about us. That's kind of like what was in his mind. At that moment, I didn't know what he wanted from me. But then later on, I put the pieces together, and I realized that's what he was thinking. He wanted to tell me, don't even look at our culture when the other ones are so much worse, right? Oh, I'm not letting them get off the hook like this. Sorry, okay? Where do we draw the line here? Okay? Do you I mean, honestly, where do we draw the line? Do you want to have the beginning stages of Islam? Because it can escalate into that direction anytime. It can. Even without refugees in your country. It can. If you let it, it can escalate back to the Middle Ages. So many courageous activists have fought and have worked so hard on women liberation and egalitarianism. And then people are very quick to bring it back to the time to the Stone Ages, where women were stoned to death. I think in every country even, or they were executed in other ways or whatever, and just they were given a label, a convenient label like witch or something, and then they could do that. It's that easy. It was that easy, right? No civil rights whatsoever, and so people had to really stand up and work real hard on giving us civil rights and giving us an ethical system, a more ethical system, also for animal rights. I mean, so much has been done in that way compared to the Middle Ages, like compared to 1400, during the time of Joan of Arc. The animals had no rights. The women had no rights. Children also had no rights. I mean, it was insane. They were beating children. It's incredibly awful. Okay, Islam is like this and even worse to this day. So, do you want to embrace something like this if you're a feminist? I hope not. Okay, that's all I can say to that. But anyway, we have to be very, very careful. I'm just rattling off and just all over the place, right? It's not a very organized conversation. It's not a very organized essay that I'm delivering in my videos. It's just like it's more like an invitation to a conversation. I want this to be a conversation. I want this to be open, and I want to hear what other people have to say about this, and I want to hear about other people's troubles and problems that they encounter in their daily lives, in communication with other people. And then I will give you my idea, my 3 cents to this conversation, and say, you don't have to let them get off the hook. You don't have to forgive them, You can observe them, pay attention, and you can catch them in the act, and you can say, I love you, but I want you to know that what you just did there and your entire mannerism is sexist, and it is men dominating worldview. Okay, why does the man have to dominate? That's ridiculous. Even among wolves, there are many dominating females instead of males. There are alpha females in wolf packs. There will be sometimes a male and sometimes a female alpha animal. The queen or the king, whatever, the head of the pack, the ruler of the pack. It could be a female sometimes. Why do humans have a problem with that? To this day, I mean, look at it. If we still see the boys sitting on the table, not even blinking his eye when we're cleaning off the table, right? My mother's nudging me if I might be talking to my dad about something. My mother will then nudging me. Come, let's help Christa and why don't you nudge my brother, right? Nudge my brother. Hey, come, let's help clean it. No, never, not even one time. And that's the problem with it. I have such a problem with it. I've always had such a problem with it. I thought this was so incredibly unfair and unjust, this situation. Me as a girl, I have to be, even under 18, I have this obligation to help them clean off the table. And my brother doesn't, who's younger, even younger than me. And, or, even when we were both over 18, then that has never changed. They expected it from me and not from him. Okay, so, so it's very annoying. And that's why I talk about this, because it needs to be talked about. All of these things that are so totally wrong with society. And my family is it's just one out of billions of families. That's why I'm bringing this up. My family is not some kind of exception. There may be some exceptional families where this is not happening. Okay, but I don't even think I've met any of those. I think Paul is really the first. Paul is really even though he has some sexisms going on still in his verbal expressions and his word choices and stuff. But that's kind of like, it's very habitual. I have to. But that's why I let him know. I pointed out to him so that he becomes consciously aware of it, right? But Paul is really the first one who does not expect me to be serving him because I'm female, right? He doesn't. He doesn't. He's the one that is in the kitchen all the time. And because of that, I don't want to be in the kitchen, because he makes a big mess in there. And I have to really clean up my countertop all the time because he makes my countertop dirty. And the reason why I can't use this countertop is because there are literally 50 pots and pans on it. And I'm pointing it out and I say, why don't you use your own countertop, the other side of the sink, so, which is like 3 feet only in space. I have 2.5 feet on my side of countertop. It's not very much. It's rough here in this house particular. The other house has a few feet more countertop on each side of the sink. But believe it or not, even though he has, at the other house, he has about, let's say, 8 feet countertop on his side of the counter, of the sink. Everything is completely filled up with pots and pans. I mean, it wouldn't matter how much counter. He could have 50 feet of counter space. It would all be, every inch of it would be cluttered up with stuff, which is the mental illness. Yeah. It is on the outside the way it's on the inside. That's what's going on. It's so cluttered up. It's just unbelievable. And even though his mind is so cluttered up and his countertop is so cluttered up and he is chaotic and often unsanitary, where I have to help. But I help not because he expects me to. He doesn't expect me to. And that's what I like about it. I have to help because I know how to clean things. So, and I can't see this dirty. I mean, we can't let the kitchen go down the drain. I mean, that's absolutely can't. And right now I have the spinal cord problem. It's very difficult. Every time I work, I break out into this unbelievable sweat. But today is the first day now from like 3 months that I've suffered so incredibly much. In the beginning, I was on oxycodone, even 2 a day. I mean, this is highly addictive stuff, and it's a controlled substance, and I had to show my ID to even buy it at the pharmacy, and when I saw all of that, I was really scared of oxycodone. And another thing I need to bring up, Jesus Christ. I read the instructions of oxycodone. Oh, you cannot. I mean, this is like, am I in some kind of weird side of the timeline Mandela effect here or something? Because I did not expect this. I read the instructions of oxycodone, like big instruction letter that it comes with. It says, of course it warns people about it, if you're pregnant, don't take it, and the side effects, and it can cause habituation. They have to write this in, obviously they have to, or they're going to get sued, and they are getting sued, by the way. But I'll get into this for a moment, not by me, but class action lawsuit against Purdue Pharma for incredible unethical ways of dealing with this. So, but their instruction page that comes with it, it says in the very end, if you are through with your phase of taking oxycodone, if you don't need oxycodone any longer, which is also ridiculous because people are getting addicted to it. That's why there is a class action lawsuit against it, and for different reasons. They're getting addicted to it because it doesn't come into effect 2 hours after you took it. It's like no plant in the world would have a delay of 2 hours coming into effect after you took it. So what happens is people think, oh, it didn't work, I didn't take enough, so they take another one. That's what happened to me in the ER. They gave me another one because the first one wasn't working, because I wasn't even there in the ER for 2 hours. So it takes more than 2 hours for the effects to kick in. So with 2 tablets, the effect came a little bit sooner. Obviously, if you take a whole lot, then I guess it comes a little sooner, the effect. But the effect should even happen after taking one of the tablets, little tablet, right? It should already immediately have some kind of pain-reducing effect, right? Obviously, it should be. So if you take a pain-reducing herbal plant, a whole plant substance, like Pieris japonica, rhododendron, Camellia japonica, valerian root, chamomile, pineapple weed, there are different plants out there that have really amazing pain-reducing effect, even rosemary, even lavender, even what was the other one? Wintergreen, for example, and geranium as well. So pain-reducing effect and anti-inflammatory, and even has an effect on hyperglycemia, which is huge. I mean, has all kinds of effect, even anti-carcinogenic, which all medicinal plants seem to have anti-carcinogenic effect, which is huge, huge, huge. The pharma industry doesn't talk about this. They will never talk about this. They will never teach you in universities about it, because universities have been hijacked during the Nixon era. Okay, so they teach pharma medicine. They don't teach you how to heal a living being, a dog or a human, right? They don't teach you that. They don't talk about plants, okay? In Europe, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more green, but not that much, okay? Not as much as it should be. So I was thinking about studying medicine, I was really looking into it. I read that information paper on what is required for it, what you have to have. You have to have very good grades, which I didn't have. And if you don't have good grades, you had a real long waiting list. back then, when I was going to school, okay, when I just graduated from Abitur, which is like about a year, equivalent to a year, about a year of college. So, and my grades were not very good. So, but at least I did it. I had the Abitur. I had that midterm, whatever, for that was necessary to get into university or into graduate school program, like psychology or philosophy or the medical school. And they had medical school where I come from. They had it there. I could have done it, but then I read about it, and it was seems interesting. But then they said you have to go through half a year of working on dead people. And when I read that, I was like, there's no way. There's no way in the world I can do it. And then I studied psychology. I find out in psychology, if you want to go anywhere into the field of neuroscience with that, and into the theoretical part, and into looking into the brain and all of that, into like more the materialistic part of psychology, which I was interested in, then our teacher said that then you have to go through a practicum, which is like about half a year or a year. That's part of your schooling. It's part of the 8 years of going to school. You have to go through the practicum of working on test animals. And when she said that, it was like the entire future with psychology was finished right in that moment. Or neurology or medicine or psychology, any of this I was completely done right then and there. I actually fell into an abyss of hopelessness in that moment, but I was so glad she told us about it, and it was still relatively in the beginning, before I even had entered into four diploma exams. So we had already been halfway through the statistics exam, which were gruesome. I ended up in the hospital 2 times because of the stress of the statistics exams, and that combined with loneliness caused me fallopian tube inflammation. IUD had to be removed, and was terrible fallopian tube inflammation, which I even already had in LA before, because of stress. So my entire abdominal area seems to carry a psychological trauma of epic proportions, and this is always what precedes these type of medical symptoms that can happen later on, whether it's bladder infection, fallopian tube inflammation, or a schwannoma or melanoma or a tumor, or the compression or an inflammation of the lower spinal column pressing on the sciatic leg nerve. All of these things are abdominal based things, and these are just the outer screaming of the body symptoms that have been pushed in that direction from ongoing, unresolved psychological trauma from the past. Okay, and that's one more indicator why I know for sure that I have been raped as a child. I have no actual memories. I have dreams, and I have nightmares about it my whole life. Recurring nightmares. I've painted bathroom scenes as when I was 4 years old and 5 years old. Bathroom scenes of my brother and me standing in a bathroom with tiles around us, and a large predatory bird, 8 feet tall, with evil eyes, was looking down on us. And who is that? well, that cannot be anyone other than one of the male figures in our family. And I assumed it was my grandfather. So, because I've always been afraid of my grandfather. It could have also been my dad. It could have also been one of my dad's friends or uncles. Who knows? I don't know. But there is severe trauma, and there is an amnesia connected to it. So, and that's very intense. And when there's amnesia, that's the body protecting itself from this information, from that memory. That's the entire body protecting itself from having to think about it and having to deal with it. But what happens later on is, if we don't resolve it, if this is never being worked on, then it will show up in form of symptoms like abdominal sickness problems. Okay? And it's been ongoing my entire life. I can't count it anymore, how many bladder infections I've had throughout my childhood, later in my later years, my teenage years, in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Okay, so now I'm almost 60 years old, and it seems to be getting more intense because I have not worked on it. This has not been resolved. I went to primal therapy. I haven't even touched on that in primal therapy. I have not even been able to touch on this level of childhood trauma. Okay. And on the second line, as Arjanov calls it, the second line of childhood trauma, which is from half a year of baby, of toddler, to, I'm making a video, half a year of age to about, I think, 10 or 11 or something like this. That's the second line, or maybe even 18. So, third line is when you're becoming an adult. Second line is childhood. First line is infancy. So I have infancy pain and trauma as well, but I have second line. I have a lot of second line trauma. Okay, and I believe that has to do with that, and I believe that I have even been abused as an infant in this way, in the abdominal way. Okay, because I had a therapist in LA, Leslie. She was therapist at the Primal Center, and when I first came there, I saw her talk about this. How she said that she has unbelievably bad, horrible feelings when she sees the photo of an infant child, of an infant baby, with the back turned towards the camera. And she knew that it had to do with her being raped, being abused as an infant. And I guess what happened is they took her away as an infant from her biological parents, and because of this, and put her into a foster care. And the unbelievable pain that Leslie had to go through. Oh, I feel so sorry. Now, thinking back, I wasn't always so perfect with her because I was in my own pain, And I triggered her a lot, and I didn't know, and I didn't mean to, because I was in my own pain. But I'll never forget, I triggered a lot of people there because I was in my own pain. It was awful. I had terrible anger problems. One time I came to the center with two kitchen gloves that are filled with newspapers, and I put red paint, Liquitex art paint on it, and and I came with those to the center and with a kitchen knife, and I mean all kinds of things. And my friend Elsa and I, we both did these kind of things. Not only on Halloween, because we're both kind of like very expressionistic in our way of expressing our pain and our emotions and our feelings. So but that went against the rules of the primal center. But Arjanov kind of excused us and said, "Oh well, but don't do it again. Don't come there again with the kitchen knife, because we don't tolerate violence there." So, and then I had a session with Shanti, and I had the kitchen knife right by my side, and he was terrified. But what he did in that session was amazing. I don't even know if he knows about samadhi meditation, but he did exactly that. He just put his mind on completely the sky perspective and completely just tuning his mind into 100% unconditional love for me. And I felt that, of course, and so I completely forgot about the kitchen knife. I was just like, oh, he cares about me, and that's what I needed in that moment. And I cried things out because of that, because he cared about me. I was able to cry it out. And that's how we heal, That is the gradual healing process that we go through. And that's that healing process that should be cultivated and supported and practiced in every prison. And we need to turn all the prisons into therapy help centers where people can cry out their pain. This is systematic work that has to be done every single day. Okay? Don't bypass any day. Every day you have to do your part. You have to go through this mindfulness process to the samadhi meditation, and never act it out. Always put yourself into this again for yourself, to look at yourself with that love and look at others with that love, and there's no one to blame. Everyone is in their own pain from childhood. Okay, if we really look at people with unconditional love, we see it. Everyone is in their own pain from childhood. Okay. If I see a doctor with wide open angry eyes, I know, and she's trying real hard to be nice, I see her pain. And I'm not going to take it personally because I see her pain. I also see how they have been indoctrinated deliberately, and that's where the people with the pathological greed on the top, that's what they have done to our society. They have taken people's already existing hate and victimhood feelings and storyline and ancestor storyline, and they have taken all of the prejudices. They have taken people's associations and identifications, and they have rubbed it in, and they have made it 10,000 times worse. That's what happened. So I'm not gonna take it personally when a doctor or a nurse might look at me with hatred, even though she's trying real hard not to. I see all of this. Can I use that person as my care provider? No, I can't, because I'm vulnerable and sensitive. I need to have a care provider who's at least neutral towards me. But, do I hate the lady? No. Do I love her? Yeah, I love her unconditionally, and I send her healing energy, and I hope she heals, and I hope that everyone heals. Yeah. That's all I can say. If I go to a store, if I go to a pharmacy and there's someone like this that has that hatred towards me because of my demographic, then I send them love. So do I want to go back there? Hopefully not, So, but we have to try. We have to at least try to make it in this world. We have to try to make it in this situation where this type of identifications and victimhood group and mentalities and all of the personal storyline that the ego tells you, and we're living with this now, that has been made 10,000 times worse by the string holders like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates. And they do that to control the public better. They cause us pain and suffering so they can control us better. So they can militarize this type of hate that some people have for others. We've seen it with Black Lives Matter. Okay, so it's horrific. And on that note, I also want to say that George Floyd, it was a real good person. I thought about him again last night. He was a real good person. He is the absolute victim of those string holders, okay? Completely. He may have been a drug user, but the drug dealer, his drug dealer was, I believe, we strongly believe his drug dealer was paid to give him some extra really bad drugs that made him extra angry also. And then the police officer that had to restrain him on the street was framed, okay? The whole thing was set up, as Candace Owens pointed out in her documentary film. I highly recommend people to watch this. Okay? And she did a lot of research into this. And I'm grateful to her for this. And this George Floyd, he had a white girlfriend. He called her mama, and they loved each other. George Floyd was a real good person. And they used this George Floyd because he looks like one of these Malcolm X or one of those long time ago, those really tall black football stars, and with this really good looking face, this really good looking man, really. And George Floyd, his face looked much nicer than Malcolm X actually, but just the same facial features, like where they can use this, then they can frame this entire thing, this entire situation, and militarize this set up situation to create Black Lives Matter, which they did, behind the back of George Floyd, who would never agree to this. And they used him, exploited him, and killed him for that purpose. They killed him in prison. The police officer did not kill him. Okay, watch the documentary. It is all right there. It is all obvious. It's all been researched. This all has been documented. Has never been talked about on mainstream news. They want the public to feel this hatred. They want to fuel this hatred. They want to fuel all of this. Anyone, even that doctor who's really making an effort to not fall into this, she has to every day go against her inner feelings that she actually has, the stuff that she has never been able to work on, okay, and that has been fueled into a fire, and then she tries to suppress that fire even. So I appreciate her for that. But I see the fire, I see the hatred, I see the prejudice, I see the victimhood that's underneath, I see all the unresolved problems. I feel nothing but love for her and compassion for this. And I can see her for that, for what she is and what she's doing. But I do not want to go to a care provider who has these unresolved feelings and is projecting that out onto me or Paul or my baby dog. So I cannot, okay? I'm going to have to switch the doctor. I'm going to have to tell him that I have to have a different doctor for this. That's not going to work. I can't even trust someone like this to do pap exam or ultrasound or any of these kind of things, or I don't know what else, blood tests, blood samples. I can't. So I'm gonna have to call them, and I'm gonna have to tell them that I have to have a different doctor for this. So there's no way I can't go there and deal with this. I love myself. I thought about this for a while, whether I should or not. So I really gutted my brain for this, and to find out, am I paranoid? Am I prejudiced? Is it me? Is it what is unresolved pain from my side? And then, but Paul saw it too. He saw the hatred too. She wore a facial mask, medical face mask, but I could see the eyes, of course, wide open eyes, and anger, and trying to suppress, trying to go against it. I feel bad for her. But I have much harder time with psychopaths that are deliberately hurting people and letting it all out on innocent people. I have much harder time with the samadhi meditation with those. But we have to make an effort, and we cannot let it out on anyone. And we also have to make sure that we, on this healing journey that we're on, physical healing, mental healing, it's all one and the same thing, of course. It's a healing journey. We have to go holistic. I'm so glad I was able to substitute now the gabapentin with valerian root and the lidocaine patches with rosemary oil, and it works. And maybe in the beginning it may not have worked because it was intense pain, level 10, but now it's not anymore. I have no pain right now. I can't tell you in words how infinitely grateful I am that I'm getting through this. I thought in the beginning, I actually thought I had to end my life if this does not get better. I actually thought this is not going to get better. That's what I thought. I was already preparing for hospice type of situations. I was preparing for a real bad diagnosis and all of this. But I don't believe I have a bad diagnosis. I don't want to say the word. I think this is the sciatic leg nerve that is pinched, that is an inflammation. Inflammation can, if it's untreated, if it's not worked on, it can escalate into something. If your life situation doesn't change, if you're not working on something like this, that's why I talk about this in my videos. That's why I talk about this complicated, I'm not showing you, that's why I talk about this complicated, a very complex and very comprehensive approach of natural healing, which encompasses mental healing, meditation, mindfulness, seeing other people for who they are, even though we have been brainwashed and we have been indoctrinated, particularly by stringholder activity like this, which use the news, news journalists to do this dirty work for them, and so on, which infiltrated into medical sciences and into neurology and which are promoting the pharma industry, and it is unbelievable, so absolutely unbelievable. Alex Jones reported that they have found out something about the virus. So I can't say it now because my video will be removed, and if the video is removed by YouTube, I will post it on Rumble. And my next video that I will make, I will talk about it, and I will only post it on Rumble. The next video I make after this one here. And I'm going to get much more into the details of the nitty-gritty of what the pharma industry is actually doing to what they're doing, what they're paying chemists to do. What kind of drugs they are creating and what these drugs are doing to people, okay? This is not a theory. This is factual. This has all come out to the open, all of this. So anyway, I'm promoting holistic healing because I care about all living beings. Peace and love.